Join Hear the Watchman this April 5th through 8th in Dallas, where you'll get to meet and listen to people like David Hebner, Tracy Tennant, Jamie Walden, David Paxton, and Derek Gilbert, as well as so many others that will help you on your spiritual journey as we look at the prophetic signs in the heavenlies. You will leave feeling more equipped and empowered, ready to face this world's future challenges with a strong faith and spiritual truth. Starting February 16th, you can get $20 off in-person tickets when you use the code DIGBIBLE, all one word. If you can't make it in person, there'll be a live stream on-demand option that using the same code, you can get a $10 off discount. If you do make it in person, look us up. We'd love to meet you. We are a community, and just like it says in Matthew 18:20, for where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am among them. Together with God, we can do amazing things in His name. Can't wait to see you there. And keep on digging.
My name is L.A. Marzulli.
This is Dr. Aaron Judkins.
This is Trey Smith.
This is Ryan Peterson.
This is Dr. Judd Burton.
This is Timothy Albrino.
This is Derek Gilbert, and you're listening to the Dig Bible Podcast.
Glad you made it. Come along for the ride as we search for hidden truth, explore historical context, and dig into God's Word to help us understand the past, present, and future of this supernatural world. This is Steve, along with Justin and Ben, and you are listening to the Dig Bible Podcast.
To all the local guys and gals and long-distance pals, we're back.
We are back.
We're back. We're down Justin today.
I know.
Y'all was down me last time.
It's so hard to get all of us together, but my gosh, the show must go on, as we say.
Oh, yeah.
But absolutely love this. I love the time we get to spend together. Especially in person. I know we have to do this remotely sometimes, but in person makes such a difference.
It's much better.
It is.
Sure, the audio is probably better.
And the bloopers,
sure.
The bloopers are usually better too.
True. So we had a pretty good snow.
Oh, the snow was nuts.
I got run off the road. Some yahoo didn't want to get over and let me have a little bit of my own lane, so I ended up in the creek. But old stone wall there. I had to pull winch, but no big deal.
That's crazy, though. I know that that weather was nuts. I mean, we didn't get mail for 10 days.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's funny because we were sitting here getting set up, and Steven goes, "What is that?" It's the UPS guy bringing all these Jeep parts I ordered. Don't tell Keisha.
I haven't heard one of them UPS trucks in a while.
Yeah. But that mailbox was full one day. I was like, oh, my goodness.
No, what's this?
They don't plow out here where we live, which is it's kind of like they don't salt, which is a good thing because it's not tearing our cars up as bad.
And for the groundwater.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like it takes forever. And all these little valleys, which it looks like they come out here on our property, not property, but out to my house, out to where we're at, and they use the road grader to finally actually able to scrape off the packed ice.
Well, it looks better now. Everything's pretty much melted. It went from -8 the other morning last week. It was -8 in my car.
It was.
And then
to like 60 degrees.
It was 66 today.
It's crazy.
It's
and rainy. So there's a little bit of snow left over where it was kind of piled up, but
that's about
all the ground snow and everything, it's gone.
Yeah, thank the Lord.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, I mean, you drove it today. Your little Cherokee.
I drove the little Cherokee.
Oh man, long time
coming.
What's it been? Three months?
Little. We still got some work to do.
That's fine, but it's running. It's
running.
It's tagged.
It's tagged.
It's
It's
legal.
legal. Exactly.
There you go. New tires, legal.
Yep.
But I'm trying to get them into the Jeep bug. I told my wife, I said, hey, honey, I don't do drugs. I might have a couple Jeeps, but I don't do drugs. And she told me, at this point, I think drugs would have been cheaper. It's pretty funny.
It is funny.
So anyhow, I guess I'm going to lead today's little episode. We're going to do Gog and Magog.
But let's start with prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for everything you've given us. Thank you for the time that we have together here. Help us try to reach the one person that needs to hear something of your word, Lord. Help us have that discernment as we look into your truth and continue along the way. And Lord, just continue to bless everything that we do as you continue to, Lord. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. So, I'm not a studier, and the ones who are long time listeners probably knows this. I come and I wing it. I don't do much preparing. I've never studied a day in my life. I guess I can't say that now. So anyways, we're going to talk about Gog and Magog. Gog and Magog was written in Ezekiel. It's found in two different places. Ezekiel 38 and 39 and in Revelations. In Revelations, it talks about, it's more of in the millennial reign when the devil's let out of his cage after 1,000-year reign, and he swarms up Gog and Magog, which would be as the best I heard it described would be, the devil's, he's chained and imprisoned. The Antichrist at this point and the beast, they're already in the burning flames of hell, right? So the devil's let out. So during this whole 1,000-year reign, we still have our freedom of choice. But there's, the devil's not running around, causing evil things and manipulating people like he does now. But people don't have to follow Jesus during this time. And it's so, when he comes in, it says like a whirlwind. I heard it like he's a magnet, and he draws the last of all the unbelievers to him for that last battle. And so it clearly defines the sides. It's not guerrilla warfare. It would be like a conventional war. You know who the enemy is by now.
Old school British. You're standing in lines on either side.
Right. Well, you're standing in lines, but we're just kind of like, take care of it. I'm a little sick, so we'll get through this though. But anyways, so we're focusing more on Ezekiel. So Ezekiel was written about, scholars say, about 2,550 years ago. And at that point, obviously, today's world that we live in, they would have no idea about, right? So, we'll read a couple verses here, and then we'll dive into it and then continue on.
Chapter 38. This is another message that came to me from the Lord. Son of man, turn and face Gog of the land of Magog, the prince who rules over the nations of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. Give him this message from the sovereign Lord. Gog, I am your enemy. I will turn you around and put hooks in your jaws to lead you out with your whole army, your horses and your charioteers in full armor, and a great horde armed with shields and swords. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya will join you too with all of their weapons. Gomer and all of its armies will also join you, along with the armies of Beth Torgama from the distant north and many others.
Okay, so to break this down, we need to know who we're talking about, right? Gog from the land of Magog. So Gog's a person or identity or a title, okay? And then Magog, if you look and do your research, Genesis 10 lays out, they say Genesis 10 is like the table
of nations.
Yeah. So Magog they say is the furthest north. And by the word of God, when you hear directions, picture the map with Israel in the center. So everything east is everything east of Israel. Everything west, north, and south, the same, right? So Magog says it's the far land north. So what's north of Israel? Russia. So Magog is of Russian territories. People say it went from all the way from Ukraine all the way to China. So that's pretty much like the Soviet Union-ish, right? Okay, so Magog is actually a person. It is Noah's great-grandson, and he's the son of Japheth, okay? And it was the second son born of Japheth, I've got written down. And I've got written down it was north of the Black Sea, which is close, the area of the Soviet Republic, okay? And then Persia was still considered Persia, which I thought this fascinating, all the way up till 1935. And they changed the name to Iran. So Persia is Iran. Iran attacking Israel, we can kind of, they want to do that.
It's not a stretch.
Yeah, not a stretch at all. So my thing is Russia. Why Russia? Okay, but we'll get back to that. Okay. Then you have Ethiopia, which that was like Cush's relatives. Cush and all them kind of settled in Ethiopia, which is south of Egypt, it's partly Ethiopian, partly Sudan. And they're already allies with Iran and Russia. Libya, which is the only country that still maintains its ancient name, which I guess Ethiopia kind of does too, but it's not all of Ethiopia at this point. By now, I guess borders kind of changed. And it's they're allies with Russia and Iran also. Gomer. The area of Gomer is Poland, the Czech Republic, and East Germany. And a recent history, I guess we'll say, World War II, shows us, because these are mostly Catholic and Christian countries, right? But it shows us how anti-Semitic they can be because they were swayed with Hitler, right? Okay. And Beth Togarmah is modern-day Turkey. Also, and it also makes up of Turkestan, Armenia. Okay. So, with that, we're going to go to I looked up to kind of get the local, the recent who believes in what stats. Okay, Russia, kind of guess, 41% are Orthodox Christians, which are Catholic-ish, right? 6.3% are Christian, because it said other Christians, so I would assume more like traditional, just Bible Christians, right? Not for, say, a denomination, okay? And 6.5 is Muslim, okay? Which the Muslims, we obviously understand why they would want to attack the Jews. Okay, Persia, which is obviously Iran, they are 99.4% Muslim, of course, right? But the kicker is they are 90 to 95% Shia Muslims and only 5 to 10% Sunni Muslims. If anybody knows anything about the Shiites and the Muslims, is they're not fond of each other.
The Shiites and the Sunni.
Yeah, I said the Shiites and the Muslims. Yeah, Shiites and the Sunnis. They're not fond of each other. Okay, Ethiopia is 31% believes in Islam. It didn't really say. 44% the Catholics, and then only 1% Christian. Libya is 95% Sunni Muslim. And Germany, so the Gomar people, Germany is 20% Christian, 4% Islam, and then 30% Catholic.
So
Poland.
I just want to say before we go too far, when we're saying this and you're saying Christian, you're just talking about other Christian other than Catholic.
Correct.
We're not
Correct.
saying Catholics aren't Christians.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Obviously Catholics are Christians.
But
it's
the Catholic Church is the largest Christian
organization
sect in the world. So Christian
and the
and
things
other
that's
Christians.
come out lately are a little questionable. Okay. But we'll bring that up later also. Okay. And then so they're 20% Christian, 4% Islam, Muslim, 30% Catholic. Poland is 72% Catholic. It didn't really say much. The rest were kind of like whatever. But the Czech Republic kind of is interesting. They are only 9% Catholic, 2% Christian, but 48% believe in nothing. So they're like an open book, right? Okay. Turkey, and let's see here. Turkey is 98% Muslim, Sunni Muslims. Turkestan is 93% Sunni Muslims and 6% Christian. And the Armenians. Oh my goodness. They are 72% Catholic, right? So the question that got me thinking when I was reading this, and why would Russia, who's mostly Catholic, I mean, they're not Jewish, but we kind of are running, we're running almost parallel with each other. We believe in the same God. We just believe Jesus died for us, where the Jews don't believe Jesus was the Son of God. He was just a prophet. But we're kind of running parallel with each other, right? And all these other nations that are mostly Catholic. Obviously, the Muslim countries, we get that, right? The Muslims and the Jews have always been fighting. Okay. And then I just kind of thinking about the Catholic Church and the way things have been going, the stuff that we believe is not right, abortion, same-sex marriage, the trans stuff, all that stuff. I'm trying to be.
I want everybody to know
Yeah.
this is as politically correct as Ben will ever be.
Yeah. I'm trying to be nice, okay? So
Because God wants us to be.
right. I mean, you do what you want to. That's our free will from God, but it's not right. With that being said,
We're not the judge.
right. With that being said, why would the Russians and the other Catholic countries want to join and then attack Israel? Maybe stuff will change, and we're not to that point yet, which is what I think. Okay, but it's just kind of interesting, right, to look at how things are going. Which my thought would be, if you would have a one world leader, who would it be? If you just went, would it be the President of the United States? Would it be this? Would it be that? The Pope. And what's the Pope? The leader of the Catholic Church, right? So that might be later on in the future, they kind of make a one world peace agreement with Israel.
I think you got it. It's possible.
You know what I mean?
I think you got to look at it like this too, though. Is you used Hitler as an example
Right.
before. 10% of the Nazi Party actually agreed with Hitler.
True.
Like
True.
90% of people that followed what Hitler said was out of fear.
Right. And
They
that's
did it
also
out of fear.
Right.
And that's the majority of the population. If they rose up and went against him, they
Well,
probably could have overtaken him. But
Right.
because of the control that Hitler had with the fear, because fear is the ultimate controller. If we've learned anything in the last 4 years, we see that fear is used to control people.
well, it's been longer than 4 years.
Well,
like
but-
the last 7.
Well, this
Because not to get political with it, but
the current,
once they started attacking Trump and started attacking all this LGBT stuff coming out and the Me Too movement, not saying that that's not, obviously if certain things happen to you, you need to speak out. But you almost get it to where it's like I am uncomfortable in a Sunday school class with a bunch of girls because I'm afraid someone might say something, which is ridiculous because I'm not, I have no desire to do anything to that extent, but it just has to take at this point. So you just have to say something.
he said, she said.
He
stuff.
he whatever, touched me, looked at me, whatever, and your life is gone. But anyways, but yeah, you're right. The fear, and it's, I guess in the military, for me, it's easy if you're I will say a sheep, a weak person. It's easy to control them. You know someone who has a strong character, and you can tell someone who has a weak character. Not saying, you're a horrible person because you have a weak character, but you can tell. And then if you want to do harm, you can advance on that knowledge that you receive from their actions. But anyways, so the whole Russia and Iran debacle we've seen recently, right? So Russia has helped Iran with nuclear weapons and has scientists in Iran, and Iran has been sending weapons to Russia to help in the use with fighting Ukraine. That's known knowledge. Okay, Obama made a deal with Iran, and we gave them, or freed by sanctions, $100 billion, right? And sent on a plane $1.8 billion in the dark of night once. I can't remember the day or whatever. Why did this happen? I don't know, right? And then they're saying that Iran used that money to fund Hamas to attack Israel. That was the money and Iran is feeding Hamas, which is Palestine, which is, during this research, interesting because it's the land of Canaan, who Israel at the very beginning was supposed to wipe out, or at least shoo away and not be a part of, but yet they intermarried and stuff, and it's been a thorn in their side ever since.
Anytime you don't follow what God says,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah.
there's a repercussion.
For sure. And, look at it. Look at Judges. The whole Old Testament, it's just, oh, God, please help us. We're going to go do this. God, please help us. But, and Iran also, they're the largest sponsor of terrorism, which we all know that. And for the people who don't know, Iran openly calls us the Great Satan, the United States. And he calls Israel the Little Satan. So that's how bad they hate us, right? Okay, so moving along. All right, so we're going to get back in verse 7.
Get ready, be prepared, keep all the armies around you mobilized, and take command of them. A long time from now, you will be called into action. In the distant future, you will swoop down on the land of Israel, which will be enjoying peace after recovering from war, and after its people have returned from many lands to the mountains of Israel. You and all your allies, a vast, awesome army, will roll down on them like a storm and cover the land like a cloud. This is what the sovereign Lord says. At that time, evil thoughts will come to your mind, and you will devise a wicked scheme. You will say, Israel is an unprotected land filled with unwalled villages. I will march against her and destroy these people who live in such confidence. I will go to these formerly desolate cities that are now filled with people who have returned from exile in many nations. I will capture vast amounts of plunder, for the people are rich with livestock and other possession now. They think the whole world revolves around them, but Sheba, Dedan, and the merchants of Tarshish will ask, do you really think the armies that you have gathered can rob them of silver and gold? Do you think you can drive away their livestock and seize their goods and carry off plunder?
Okay, we're going to stop right there. We're going to go to the New King James Version because it reads a little different. So verse 13, Sheba, Dedan, and the merchants of Tarshish. And then it has more. It says, and all their young lions will say to you. Okay, so now the question is, what does it mean by young lions, and who is Tarshish? Okay, and the other two. So the other two, Sheba and Dedan, were on the Arabian Peninsula, which is now Saudi Arabia. Okay, and what's funny about this is Egypt's not mentioned. And what was Egypt? In the old days, Egypt was like Israel's great enemy. They were always fighting Egypt. But what's going on? What's today? Egypt and Israel has a peace agreement. And Israel right now is working with Saudi Arabia on a peace agreement. And it said that they're pretty close in making that if they haven't already. So that says, okay, that would be why Saudi Arabia, they're a Muslim country. Know what I mean? And so's Egypt, really. So why would them two not be in the battle with all the other Muslim countries around them? You know, other countries has to go through or around Egypt, you know, Ethiopia and all that to get to them. I mean, Saudi Arabia's kind of kicked off on their own little, they got the seas on both sides of them, so, or straits, whatever you want to call it. So that leaves Tarshish, okay? Does anybody remember Tarshish is mentioned in the Bible already somewhere else? Do you know where? Dun, dun, dun.
I'm waiting with bated breath.
Jonah. Oh, my goodness. And I'm looking right at it. It's got a J. Jonah. Okay. So Jonah, when God told him to go to Nineveh, he's like, heck no, I ain't going to talk to them people. I hate them. Whatever, right? So he bought a ticket and was going to Tarshish when the great storm come and everybody's freaking out. And Jonah's finds like, hey, it's me. And they threw him overboard and the whale ate him, or the giant fish. Okay? So, but where is Tarshish? Okay? Greek historians, and I've got actual Greek historian Herodotus says, Tarshish is beyond the Pillars of Hercules. Do you know where the Pillars of Hercules is? The Pillars of Hercules is the gateway of the Mediterranean Sea from the Atlantic Ocean. They called that the Gateway of Hercules, okay? Or Pillars of Hercules. And it also, they said, the island of Tarshish was the main source of tin that the ancient world got their tin from. Okay? And, you know, say 500 years from now, Britain was pretty much the powerhouse country in the world at that time. They had the largest Navy fleet. they controlled all the oceans, went wherever they wanted. And they started little colonies everywhere, right? So the historians are saying that the young lions would be the ancient colonies of Britain, which Australia, the land of Australia, it was actually
It was a prison.
but they are one of the colonies, and Australia, in most modern wars, Australia is, well, they're an ally with America, but they send quite a bit of their troops. Like when I was in Iraq, the Aussies were over there drinking beer, and we were drinking water. Poor guy. I mean, it was a nightmare. But but anyways, so the United States, obviously, the 13 colonies, and then Canada, which is still kind of tied a little bit. They're their own country, but they're still kind of tied to Great Britain. So, because I was wondering, and I'm sure a lot of people wonder, right now, America is the largest, we're the only superpower in the world as of now. Russia's close and China's close, but we can go anywhere we want. We have the largest Navy by far. We have the largest, I wouldn't say not the largest army per person, because that's China, but we have the largest fighting capability. China can put they can throw a lot of men at you, but we have all the most advanced technology and the most advanced military that the world has, right? I mean, we got 5th-gen fighters. Russia and China has some, but they're kind of iffy. They're having a lot of trouble with theirs, and our F-22s and F-35s are just dominating. So it's like, I mean, the Bible's predicted all this stuff, but why aren't we mentioned? But we are. We're just subtly mentioned, right? Because and we're still a young country. So that almost makes you wonder, are we going to make it long? You know what I mean? We might we're that weed that shot up real fast and strong, but we might die off pretty quick too.
So I think that's
especially the way things are going.
A good point, though, is that you look at this, and we have to always remember that when the Bible's written and we're looking at prophetical end times thing, everything centers around Israel.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah. We're nothing, really.
It comes down to them. So when it comes to our country or any other country in this planet, we got to remember that end times prophecy centers around Israel.
Well, Israel's is God's elect.
Mm-hmm.
We're Christians, and I heard it said this way, like when Jesus Christ come and he died, it's almost as if, not necessarily say God set Israel aside, but he kind of set them aside on the table. It's still there, like he's still watching them, but it's the time of the church until the rapture. And then his attention goes back to Israel, And it also makes you wonder, was America even here? Were we even alive during this? Were we even a country? Like I said before. So, anyways, let's see. Where did we leave off?
Therefore, son of man, prophesy against Gog. Give him this message from the sovereign Lord. When my people are living in peace in their land, then you will rouse yourself. You will come from your homeland in the distant north with your vast cavalry and your mighty army, and you will attack my people Israel, covering their land like a cloud. At that time in the distant future, I will bring against you my land as everyone watch it, and my holiness will be displayed by what happens to you, Gog. Then all nations will know that I am the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord asks. Are you the one I was talking about long ago when I announced through Israel's prophets that in the future I would bring you against my people? But this is what the sovereign Lord says. When Gog invades the land of Israel, my fury will boil over. In my jealousy and blazing anger, I promise a mighty shaking in the land of Israel on that day. all living things, the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, and the animals of the field, and the small animals that scurry along the ground, and all the people on earth will quake in terror at my presence. Mountains will be thrown down, cliffs will crumble, walls will fall to the earth. I will summon the sword against you on all the hills of Israel, says the sovereign Lord. Your men will turn their swords against each other. I will punish you and your armies with disease and bloodshed. I will send torrential rain, hailstones, fire, and burning sulfur. In this way I will show my greatness and holiness, and I will make myself known to all the nations of the world. Then they will know that I am the Lord.
Is that not crazy? I mean, that's like anger. True anger. Right? Okay, so I don't want to be on the receiving end of that.
No.
Right?
No.
By no means. Okay, so we kind of got the gist of the battle, right? So pretty much they're gonna Gog, whoever Gog might be, we're gonna get in that here in a second, and his allies that he's made are gonna come on to Israel, and then God himself will step in and end it, right? So the question is, who might Gog be? Okay, so we're going to take a little sidebar. We're going to go to Amos 7, 1 through 3, and it's going to be kind of vague right now. So it's kind of funny, the language also. The sovereign Lord showed me a vision. I saw him preparing to send a vast swarm of locusts over the land. This was after the king's share had been harvested from the fields as the main crop was growing up. In my vision, the locust ate every green plant in sight. Then I said, O sovereign Lord, please forgive us, or we will not survive, for Israel is so small. So the Lord relented from his plan. I will not do it, he said. Why is that even in the Bible? If he told, if the sovereign Lord told Amos, you know what? This is what's going to happen. And Amos says, please, Lord, please don't. And he says, all right, I won't. Why? Like, we're kind of still puzzled, right? So, translation in Greek in 250 or 285 BC, the Lord hath shown me, and behold, a swarm of locusts were coming, and behold, one of the young devastating locusts was Gog the king. So our version is translated from Hebrew to this, right? And I can't remember, was Constantine around? No, it's the New King James, or King James, wanted the Bible translated into Greek, right? Which ours is translated into English, right? But when he translated it into Greek, his translation people, in Greek, from Hebrew to Greek, they translated it with a swarm of locusts were coming, and behold, one of the young devastating locusts was Gog the king. Okay? That's just some of the research that I found. So it's obviously different, but is this salvational? No, right? It's just informational, right? So then we're going to go to Proverbs 30, verse 27. Okay. It says, locusts have no king, but they march in formation. Right? Which is odd. Let's go to the New King James with the same verse. It says, the locusts have no king, yet they advance in ranks. Right? So it's saying the locusts here have no ranks and no king, but yet in the translation here to Greek before in Amos, it's saying these locusts have a king, which is named Gog. So it's almost, they're using the same word locust, but it's not like the term locust isn't the animal that eats stuff. Okay? Revelations 9. This is like a little sidebar. Revelations 9, look at it for me.
Revelation 9.
1 through 12 is what I...
The fifth trumpet brings the first terror. Then the fifth angel blew his trumpet, and I saw a star that had fallen to earth from the sky, and he was given a key to the shaft of the bottomless pit. And when he opened it, smoke poured out as though from a huge furnace, and the sunlight and the air turned dark from the smoke. Then the locusts came from the smoke and descended on the earth, and they were given power to sting like scorpions. And they were told not to harm the grass or plants or trees, but only the people who did not have the seal of God on their foreheads. They were told not to kill them, but to torture them for 5 months with pain like the pain of a scorpion sting. In those days, people will seek death, but will not find it. They will long to die, but death will flee from them. The locusts looked like horses prepared for battle. They had what looked like gold crowns on their head, and their faces looked like human faces. And they had hair like a woman's hair, and teeth like the teeth of a lion. And they wore armor made of iron, and their wings roared like an army of chariots rushing into battle. They had tails that stung like scorpions, and for 5 months they had the power to torment people. Their king is the angel from the bottomless pit, and his name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in Greek, Apollyon the destroyer. The first terror is past, but look, 2 more terrors are coming.
Is that not interesting? Like, you have a king, a leader of locusts here, right? So I just found this interesting. Does it pertain? Does it not pertain? In Revelations 20, verse 8, which it's the defeat of Satan, it says, he will go out to deceive the nations called Gog and Magog. In every corner of the earth, he will gather them up together for battle, a mighty army, as numberless as the sand along the seashore. So, the question is, who is Gog? Is he a person, or is he like a demon king, a demon entity behind the leader of Russia, or, as here is would be Satan in Revelations? It explains why, what I was getting at is this kind of explains why you see them at both before. Like, it's not the same person because they were destroyed in Ezekiel in the first Gog and Magog battle. But yet Gog reappears and Magog as saying the army that was once before gathered again. If you have an army and you went to war and half your army died and you recruited more people, you still have an army. You don't have half an army, right? The ones that the army, the soldiers, they're not really, they're more like a number, and then the leader. So, but the revelations that we read here, that's the millennial reign. That's at the end of that, right? So it's kind of like the King of Tyre, where you're talking to the person king, but God is also talking in that case to the demon behind them,
The principality behind
right?
it, yeah.
So with this, it's like if it happened tomorrow, Russia, Putin is Russia's, for say, king, president, whatever he is, supreme leader, whatever his title is, right? But what's the demon? He's Catholic, or I don't know him personally, but why would he want to attack Israel right now? It would have to be like you said before. They're deceived somehow. Mm-hmm. It would have to be some kind of evil force behind them driving them that way.
Hey listeners, it's Nick from Kevlar Joe's Coffee Company. I want to invite you to try something new. Here at Kevlar Joe's Coffee Company, we have a bold and slow-roasted coffee that is 100% organic and ethically sourced. There are no pesticides or fungicides from the plantations we import our coffee from, and it's all single-sourced too. We have light, medium, and dark roast. Even decaf coffee as well to satisfy whatever kind of coffee you drink. We also have a variety of flavored coffees for you to try, including our hazelnut and apple pie flavored coffees, which are both big sellers. You can order our coffee at www.kevlarjoes.com. You can also follow us at Facebook, Instagram, or X for Kevlar Joe news, deals, and your daily dose of coffee-related memes, so make sure to like and follow our pages. And I'll leave you with this, listener. The world isn't a safe place right now, and it seems like it's always teetering on the edge. But don't forget, like it says in Matthew 5:14, you are the light of the world, a city that is set on a hill and cannot be hid. Let your light shine before all men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. So be bold, be humble, and be Kevlar.
Well, that's what you said.
And
when you showed this, when you started this, you talk about that Gog is sent to deceive
right.
all that's there. And it's the same thing. We look at this with that Deuteronomy 32, worldview. We've talked about this a bunch of times. The sons of God, right? When God says he put the sons of God in power over the different nations. He numbered the nations according to the sons of God. We have all those nations there. We have all those ones. And we see plainly, like in Daniel, we see the prince of Persia, that principality, the prince of Persia and the prince of Grecia, both being obviously bad. They're fighting against an angel. The archangel Michael had to come to actually allow that angel to get through to Daniel.
Right.
So there is these principalities, the ones that we see that they've obviously fallen away, but these are ones that are evil principalities that have been in charge. But you see Apollyon, when it's talking about this, he was sent to the bottomless pit, right? This is when he's released. This is when this evil entity, this evil principality, this evil power, we talk about that Ephesians, you fight not against flesh and blood. And this is what we're talking about. It's these entities. And these entities, he's going to come out, and he is truly, it makes sense the way that you break that down through the locusts and all those types of things, that he's the one that's going to be running the show behind the scenes.
Right. It's yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to that was the end of 38, right? So we're going to move to 37 or 39. We're going backwards. No, we're going to 39. And this is kind of like it talks about what happens at the end time, after the war. How he defeats him and then what happens afterwards. So I guess start at verse 1 and then I'll catch you off when we.
Is there a verse you want to cut off at?
I don't know yet.
Well,
I mean, I have stuff written.
Let the Holy Spirit guide you.
Yes.
Chapter 39, the slaughter of Gog's hordes. Son of man, prophesy against Gog. Give him this message from the sovereign Lord. I am your enemy, O Gog, ruler of the nations of Meshech and Tubal. I will turn you around and drive you towards the mountains of Israel, bringing you from the distant north. I will knock down the bow from your left hand and the arrows from your right hand, and I will leave you helpless. And you and your army and your allies will all die on the mountains. I will feed you to the vultures and wild animals, and you will fall in the open fields, for I have spoken, says the sovereign Lord. And I will rain down fire on Magog and all of your allies who live safely on the coasts. Then they will know that I am the Lord.
Okay. So, we don't have arrows and bows anymore. I mean, I'm sure, hunters have them. But we're not going to war with arrows and bows and horses and shields and swords, right? And chariots. So I researched this. So we'll say like the bow, right? Right here, the bow, the Greek word is kashith, which means launcher. Oh, that makes sense. A bow launches the arrow. Okay, an arrow is a shetz. Okay, and the translation means a piercing missile. Now translate that in today's world. What would a launcher be, and what would a piercing missile be? Obviously, launchers and missiles, right? Okay. I mean, he's writing in his time.
An RPG.
An RPG.
There you go.
A bazooka. A horse is a sos, S-O-O-S, which translates to a leaper, right? So when the purpose of cavalry would be you can take your horse and jump over, which obviously the body mass of the horse is also at your advantage.
Yeah.
But you can jump over like the shielded wall. And then now you're in their ranks. The horse is doing damage, which is why they started putting armor on the horses to keep them as live as long as you could. And then obviously they're slinging their swords or spears or whatever they have, right? Lances and stuff like that. Okay, which for the horse, the sus, the leaper, I actually wrote down, it's from the root word to skip, which I found that interesting. And in Jeremiah 8, chapter 8, verse 7, the same word is translated to bird. And in Exodus 14:9, it's translated to chariot, which I found, I don't see a chariot being a leaper, but that's what it translated it to, right?
Well, you think about it, when it talks about those it says that the locust's wings will sound like the roaring of chariots.
Yeah. So, I mean, imagine a bunch of horses, coming advancing on you. Okay.
But think of like you're talking about the cavalry. We're seeing this. You're seeing a large group of something armored, something big, something coming at you. I mean, it could be referencing. I mean, if you're looking at this stuff, we got to look at this too. When we're looking at Ezekiel, or we're looking at Revelation, right? We're looking at that translation, that those guys did not have the point of reference that we do now.
Right.
They're looking at something in a vision, and they're describing it the absolute best way they can.
Right.
So,
yeah, I mean,
seeing
they could even, the way I look at it is their vision could have still been a whole armies of chariots and marching soldiers coming down and attacking Israel. It's a vision. It's saying this giant army is coming to attack little Israel.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily mean something in the world's going to happen and we lost all of our technology and we're running around on horses and have swords again.
I know what you mean, but if you look at the context in Revelation, when it's talking about the locust having long hair and the sounds and all these things, they're obviously describing something that they've never seen before.
Yeah, I understand that in Revelation.
So you're looking at that as like they're looking at the future,
trying to
describe something they're seeing. Which, is it truly a creature? Is it? Are they talking about some kind of helicopter? Are they talking? I mean, who knows? But when you're looking at this in a vision, and you're back
Oh, yeah.
2,500 years ago,
Well-
trying to describe. If I go back 2,500 years and I try to describe what a tank looks like or what it is,
Right.
or a helicopter or an
Yeah.
airplane, I'm gonna be like,
A tank. I mean, the word, like, that's why I was getting into the words. You know, a horse means a leaper, right? Something that's moving, something that's
can get over.
advancing forward, right? Well, a sword is a cherub, which I thought this was funny because a cherubim, you know, like we talked about in Genesis, the cherubim standing there guarding, waving his sword back and forth, is a destroying instrument. So a sword could be anything. Guns, bazookas, whatever.
Bazookas.
Right. Anything that destroys, right? And this sounded fun, or this was interesting. So the proper word for a chariot is a Merkava, which is the name of Israel's tank.
That's actually pretty cool.
You know what I mean?
That's pretty
And
cool.
they say that Israel's tank is the most advanced tank in the world right now. So, I was just wanting to throw that in because it's, you know, it's not necessarily talking about actual bows, actual arrows, actual swords and horses and chariots during the battle, right? You've got there. It's. I think the Hebrew language is amazing because, as we'll get later, like you have numbers that mean stuff. It don't necessarily mean a number. That number. It has meaning behind it also.
Yeah.
So, verse 7, sir.
In this way, I will make known my holy name among my people of Israel. I will not let anyone bring shame on it. And the nations, too, I will know that I am the Lord, the Holy One of Israel. That day of judgment will come, says the sovereign Lord. Everything will happen just as I have declared it. Then the people in the towns of Israel will go out and pick up your small and large shields, your bows and arrows, javelins and spears, and they will use them for fuel. There will be enough of them to last 7 years, and they won't need to cut wood from their fields or forests, for these weapons will give them all the fuel they need. They will plunder those who plan to plunder them, and they will rob those who plan to rob them, says the sovereign Lord.
Okay. So, once again, shields and arrows, weapons of war, right? So, if we're talking about actual bows and arrows and swords, metal don't really burn. Do you think you could burn them for 7 years? I mean, how many bows and arrows, right? Or are we talking about something in modern day world that can be used as a weapon or fuel? We'll get to that a little bit in a minute. Dun, 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 dun. Where you at, 9?
11.
11, yeah.
And I will make a vast graveyard for Gog and his hordes in the valley of the travelers east of the Dead Sea. And it will block the way of those who travel there. And they will change the name of the place to the valley of Gog's hordes. And it will take 7 months for the people of Israel to bury the bodies and cleanse the land. Everyone in Israel will help, for it will be a glorious victory for Israel when I demonstrate my glory on that day, says the sovereign Lord. After 7 months, teams of men will be appointed to search the land for skeletons to bury, so the land will be made clean again. Whenever bones are found, a marker will be set up so that burial crews will take them to the buried in the valley of Gog's hordes. There will be a town there named Hemoa, which means horde. And so the land will finally be cleansed.
Okay. So we're coming a bunch like I said earlier, the numbers have separate meanings also, right? So you have 7 months and 7 years, right? So we'll go back to the 7 months, okay? It says, let's see here. It will take 7 months for the people of Israel to bury the bodies and cleanse the land. Everyone in Israel will help, for it will be glorious victory right? But it also says after 7 months, teams of men will be appointed, so there will be hired, right, to search the land for skeletons to bury. But it says whenever they are found, a marker will be set beside the bones, not to touch the bones, to put a marker on it, right? So a theory would be, which this ties back into the 7 years, so it's the same kind of weapon possibly used, right? So what kind of weapon would you need special people to clean up and you can use for fuel?
Something nuclear?
A nuclear weapon, right? So, which obviously, like we said, they don't know what nukes are. Okay, they're talking about you don't have to cut trees down for your fires to cook with or whatever, right? You don't go home and make a fire in your oven before you cook your pizza or your lovely wife making an apple pie. Oh, that's so good, right? But, okay, so I've heard it both ways. Either everybody cleans up for the first 7 months, right? And then after that, as people are traveling and doing their things, they find some bones and they place a marker for the paid people to come by and collect them bones and bury them. Or they wait 7 months, possibly because of nuclear fallout or whatever, right? And then as you travel and you see bones, not to touch them because they're nuclearly infected. Infected's not the word, but whatever. So you would just place them. I'm sure everybody would, here's markers if you find something, mark it. Would mark it, and then a special crew that has the equipment to isolate it, take care of it, and get rid of it would do so, right? The spot that they're going to bury them, it says, would be, it would be downwind from, it's east of the Dead Sea, which would be downwind of Israel. So it would be it's not blowing back on them, right? And if you used the leftover nuclear material for power plants or whatever, you might get power for 7 years before you have to create your own power. Just to kind of bring it in modern day. I don't know. Obviously, no one knows. But that's just a speculation, right? Because you have, if you think about it, what does Russia have? What's the biggest fear of Russia? They're going to use their nukes. And now what's Iran working towards? Making nukes. And then it's, if Iran has nukes, what's going to happen, right? But if God steps in and defeats them before they can even use their nukes,
there it is.
It's over. But there's another theory, okay?
Can we go, before we get there?
Okay.
You were just talking about the 7 years and the 7 months. You were talking about the timetable.
Right.
Which, we all know, like, you can look at Chernobyl or something like that right now, and that's been years and years.
Yeah,
and
it's
years.
definitely longer than 7 months.
It's definitely
or 7
longer
years.
as far as fallout. If this was truly something that was nuclear, then you got to say, in biblical terms, when we look at the 7 days of creation, we can look at so many different things. It means completion. It means it has come full circle. So we have to know that, like when we talk about the 70 nations, or we talk about the 70 sons of God, any of these things, it means all of them.
I got something 70 for you.
Oh boy.
So, for all this to happen, right? Israel has to be Israel. Okay? So Israel was defeated around 40 AD. They were destroyed. Right? It wasn't till after World War II was Israel had a proper nation again, right? So that would be that would take care of the first. It's 1948 was when that happened. First thing, Israel has to be a place, right? There's kind of three things that has to happen, okay? So Israel has to be a place because from, 40 AD or 70 AD? I can't, for some reason, that number, and it might be because we were saying 70s while 70s in my head. Around not long after Jesus died, Israel was conquered and was no longer a nation, and their people were scattered, right? And it says that Israel has to become a nation, and all their people will come back and gather. And then they'll prosper because they have all these riches, right? So with that being said, the step number 2 is Israel has to be profitable, right? Israel, right now, is the third most innovated country in the world. They beat us, right? I can't remember. I didn't write it down what the other two were, the first two. But
I wonder what they're measuring that off of. Like, what is that?
just what they produce, their production. Yes, Israel has to have food, I think, shipped into them and stuff like that. Okay? You can say, and then the third ones, they have to be at peace, right? Mm-hmm. But I've heard from what my research that I've done is it's kind of a mixed. I'm hearing it both ways. Like, well, Israel is at peace, right? They have the Iron Dome, so they're kind of at peace. People are always attacking them, but they have the backing of the United States. Like, they're not the scared dog chained to the tree, but they're not the dog running wild in the farm pasture either, right? But at the same time, it says there's no walls, and Israel still has walls.
But as far as peace, if you look biblically, peace in the Bible, when they were at peace, they were truly at peace,
right? And they're not,
and that's
so I don't think third has happened yet. So, but at the same time, every country has joined Russia except one. You know which one that is? Turkey. Turkey is trying its hardest to join the UN. They want to be part of the UN. It almost happened, and then Ireland said, no, this agreement's no good, so they couldn't let them. But for years and years, Turkey's been trying to join the UN. So are they getting tired of it? And then they say, you know what? Fine, we're going to go over here with Russia. Because it's one or the other, really, an alliance. And then with all this kind of the nuclear weapons, the everything happening like it is, right? So like I've got here, everybody's in position except for Turkey. A lot of people think this is going to happen after the rapture. So, and I heard it put this way, and it makes perfect sense. When Jesus is coming back. We will know that. But how? When the Antichrist signs the declaration of peace with Israel, 7 years from then, Christ will return. So whenever he signs it, the time clock starts. But once again, we're at the 7. Is it the completion of everything that unfolds, or is it a true 7 years? Now they say Israel lives in peace for the first 3.5, but are they using 3.5 as middle way, and then the actual hard part of tribulation happens? They're saying half of the end from when this and this happens. It might be 500 years, but they're saying from the beginning to the end, at the end Christ will come, but when the Antichrist signs this treaty with Israel will be the beginning. And then in the middle, everything changes when they build their temple and he sits in it and disgraces it. And then, so we're back at that. But what's interesting is Israel was declared a nation May 14th, 1948. Donald Trump declared that Jerusalem, God's city, is the capital of Israel May 14th, 2018. 70 years later. Just found that interesting.
That's interesting.
Like 70 years to the day. It wasn't June whatever. It wasn't July 1st or January 1st or whatever. It was on the day Donald Trump declared Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, right? So, kind of to come back around, where are we in this, right? Because we're the most powerful country right now, but we're not mentioned anywhere. And it brought me to a story that it's a story that happened, but it happened during Kennedy, when Kennedy was president. The Cuban Missile Crisis, right? So they made a blockade around Cuba, and Russia was sending Cuba missiles. I can't remember. I think they were nuclear missiles, but I can't remember. But they're sending them missiles, right? It might not have been nuclear. And Kennedy said that if they do not turn their ships around, that will be a declaration of war, and we will attack the mainland of Russia. They said if any missile is fired anywhere in the world, it will be a declaration of war, and America will fire upon Russia, right? Okay, so what if? No one knows. What if, right? We've always backed America. Why have we not went through the troubles? Because we all know how our country is. We are definitely not following God's law. We might have started that way, which we had our thing about the founding fathers, how it was kind of split this and that. But in a whole, our country has been mostly founded on Christianity. Okay? So, with that being said, we have definitely fallen short of how we started. We are definitely 180 going the wrong direction. But we still support Israel. So that might be our saving grace on why we haven't suffered as much as we probably should suffer. Right? Like, we all can go to the grocery store. You know, even people that don't work, you have welfare, the joke is people with welfare has more food in the fridge than the working people, you know. But, compared to what I've seen in Iraq, we are actually living way above our means.
Yeah.
You could sell 3/4 of everything you have, and you would still have more stuff and more wealth than most people on the planet. That's saying a lot.
Not for you. You got like 37 Jeeps.
Okay, whatever. But anyways, you're just jealous. Yeah, but I paid like nothing for them all. That one was given to me. Come on. That one ain't even mine. I'm just fixing it for... if he buys parts, I'll fix it. But anyways, so what if, just looking at how things happen, right? So we have pretty much Saudi Arabia, Great Britain, and we'll just say as far as their allies, NATO, right? Saudi Arabia and NATO say, are you guys really going to attack Israel and take, defeat them and take all their stuff. But it doesn't say we intervene, right? We just question them is all it says. Okay, now say if this happens and the roles are reversed. We nuke Russia and Russia nukes us. We're gone. Just, that's why we're dead. We're toast before all this even happens. Just, interesting.
It's hard. We don't know. I mean, there's so much out there, and with us not being truly the epicenter of the end battle.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're not the story. We're not the main character.
No.
We're
not even in the supporting cast.
No, we're just that country over there. I mean, if you think about it,
we
might be part of them, and it some of the versions it says and all their allies. It just don't name the little guys. And if you look at it, all the names are actually from Genesis 10, the Table of Nations. We're not part of the Table of Nations, so we're not mentioned. So, but it doesn't say anybody comes to help them.
Maybe we'll eventually be South Canada.
South Canada. North Mexico.
North Mexico. South Canada.
So Israel's not at peace yet, right? Okay. Just brainstorming. Okay, we have the Antichrist. We signed the peace agreement. Israel and the Antichrist and the world signs the peace agreement. Maybe part of that peace agreement is, hey, we won't attack you, but we need free commerce and free, open, undestructed or unobstructed commerce between nations. You can't be having these walls. And they say, well, okay. And they take their walls down. And then it opens them up for this. We don't know. I kind of think that it could happen. I think it happens after the rapture because the attention is on Israel, not on the church. All of the New Testament is on the church, right? This is prophecy from the Old Testament before the church even existed, right? And is there any prophecy that describes, I don't think there is, that explains or describes the church in the Old Testament? I mean, it obviously describes about Christ coming, but...
Well, and I think that kind of goes hand in hand with that. Isaiah 9 tells us about Christ coming and that he'll be our Savior and whatnot. I think that's kind of a foregone conclusion that, he will have followers. As you look at, actually, if you think about it, when they get in the New Testament, all the Jewish people believe that when Jesus came, that he was going to come like a military leader. And,
right.
This is what they believed. The Jews believed.
Right.
So they obviously, through their traditions, believe Jesus was coming.
It's almost like at the end of the tribulation. That's when, for the Jews, Jesus is coming.
Yeah, it was almost like that.
I also wrote down that just for informational purposes, this is the only, chapter 39, well, we're not even all the way through it yet. But chapter 39 is the only chapter that talks about cleanup after a war. I just found that why mention it? There's something in there. You're at verse 17.
Verse 17. All right. And now, son of man, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Call all the birds and the wild animals and say to them, gather together from my great sacrificial feast. Come and fear. I'm sorry. And now, son of man, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Call all the birds and wild animals and say to them, gather together from my great sacrificial feast. Come from far and near to the mountains of Israel, and there eat flesh and drink blood. eat the flesh of mighty men and drink the blood of princes as though they were rams, lambs, goats, and bulls, all fattened animals from Bashan. Gorge yourself with flesh until you are glutted. Drink your blood until that you are drunk. This is the sacrificial feast I have prepared for you. Feast at my banquet table. Feast on horses, and on charioteers, on mighty men, and on all kinds of valiant warriors, says the sovereign Lord.
Is that not crazy? He's saying, hey, birds and animals of,
I think it's interesting that uses
come and eat on all this devastation of Gog's army that I just devastated.
So if you go back, remember Genesis 6 talks about the mighty men, the men of renown.
Right.
And then it's talking about...
True. I didn't catch that.
And it's talking about the princes, the principalities in Deuteronomy.
Right.
And it says that you will die like men.
Yeah. And it says...
Are they...
Chariots and on, on mighty men and all kinds of valiant warriors.
Is this the... We've talked about this before a little bit. The second golden age, as we say, we're walking with the so-called gods on earth as they did, prior to Noah, right? You look at the book of Enoch and we see that they, the fallen angels were giving this knowledge and these things where, truly what people would call the golden age, where they were so much change, so much technology, so much knowledge was given that we weren't supposed to have. But is that at the end, some of that, the return of the Nephilim? Is it the return of those the Nephilim and their fathers, the princes?
Right.
That's interesting. I mean, random thought.
If you think about it, right? Because so like we said before, we don't know when this is going to happen, right? But Israel has to have no walls.
And it says from the land of Bashan.
Right. Yeah. It says that it happens when Israel has no walls. So in the time that Ezekiel is writing this, every city has walls. That's how they protect themselves. Mm-hmm. He's never seen a city without walls. And look at us today. Kingsport has no walls. New York has no walls. California, there is no walls.
The United States.
The United States has partially a wall on the southern border, but not the northern,
Yeah.
The North Mexico or South Canada has no walls, right? So it's almost the no walls part just in itself is foreign to Ezekiel even to mention, because he's never seen it before. Okay? And then, so what would prompt Israel to take down its walls? What would prompt you just to tear down your house? You live inside your house. Israel lives inside their walls. What would prompt you to live in a tent instead of your house? Right? Something possible, I'm saying maybe the signing of that agreement from the Antichrist. Hey, we're going to be all in peace. It said that Israel was in a time of peace, mm-hmm. Right? When has Israel ever been in peace? Never.
Not in the last 2,000 years.
Never.
So, yeah.
I mean, in the last 2,000 years, Israel's only been a country since 48.
By human standards.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
It's always been God's.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Yeah. You're right.
So, what happens in the tribulation? Who's let out of the cage to torment earth? If, like we talked Wednesday, the whole world pretty much has an earthquake. I watched a little documentary thing on Yellowstone. It's a giant volcano or whatever they called it, and they said it would wipe out like half of America, half of the United States if it went off. What happens? A third is destroyed. A third of the land burns. A third of the population dies. All these horrible things, right? But that happens during the tribulation. And then the story of Gog and Magog happens again at the end of the millennial reign, after Christ has come down, the second return, right? So,
Or the real return. I mean, really, that is the true.
the return of power.
Yeah.
He returned. He didn't. First time he come as a lamb, as a sacrifice. The second time he comes
I
as
see
a
what you're
lion.
saying. Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
He comes as I am the angel of the Lord's army.
The true
I
second
am the
coming.
commander.
Yeah.
I am the Mac Daddy. You ain't messing with me. Right? So if you think about it, this has to happen in the tribulation era. And then that goes, well, if they're burning fuel of the war for 7 years, but there's only 7 years of the tribulation, right? They're burning the fuel. You're not running scared because the Antichrist is persecuting and killing all the Jews. If you're sitting here, hey, cooking my omelets in my oven or on my stovetop using the nuclear fuel that, that's left over from old Magog over, Gog over here, right? So it's almost, is the 7 years 7 actual years, or is it the time frame of beginning to end of completion?
Mm-hmm.
And once again, is 7 years of burning the fuel really beginning and end, or 7 years, the completion, or 7 years. So you have that kind of toss up. But I don't think I want to be one of these dead guys getting eaten by all the animals.
No.
We're yet.
Verse 21.
Yeah.
In this way I will demonstrate my glory to the nations. Everyone will see the punishment I have inflicted on them and the power of my fist when I strike. And from that time on, the people of Israel will know that I am the Lord their God. The nations will then know why Israel was sent away to exile. It was a punishment for sin, for they were unfaithful to their God. Therefore I turned away from them and let their enemies destroy them. I turned my face away and punished them because of their defilement and their sins. So now, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I will end the captivity of my people. I will have mercy on all of Israel, for I jealously guard my holy reputation. They will accept responsibility for their past shame and unfaithfulness after they come home to live in peace in their own land with no one to bother them. When I bring them home from the lands of their enemies, I will display my holiness among them for all the nations to see. Then my people will know that I am the Lord their God, because I sent them away to exile and brought them home again. I will leave none of my people behind, and I will never again turn my face from them, for I will pour out my spirit upon the people of Israel. I, the sovereign Lord, have spoken.
Interesting.
That's a lot to unpack right there.
I mean, okay, so at 25, my title here says the restoration of God's people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so obviously the whole Old Testament we know, they followed, I'm sorry, God, please save us, and then they rebelled. I'm sorry, God, please save us, and over and over and over and over, right? And still today, we believe that Jesus Christ come down as the Son of God to sacrifice himself to save us from our sins. Except the Jewish people, Israel, wanted them to be freed of Rome. So they didn't accept Christ as the Savior. They just seen him as a prophet or a crazy person, right? So it's almost the same in that concept of they're worshiping something else. That's not what they wanted at the time. Lord, you said that I have to marry one woman and live the rest of my life. But I mean, look at all these pretty women. I'm just going to go over here and do my thing. Know what I mean? So you rejected God, what God said's right, to go live in sin, and it's practically the same thing. Jesus come down, if you truly, like the prophets and the rabbis, what were they called? Not the rabbi. Well, I mean rabbis, but
like the Pharisees,
the Pharisees and all them. That was their job. They studied the scriptures. They knew what the scriptures said, right? And it's kind of funny because it goes back. I was talking to Zach today about it when I was doing some more research. I was like, sorry. I was like, I mean, it's kind of like that one, like Justin says all the time. It's like my mic drop. God's sitting there on the cross, or Jesus sitting there on the cross, like, hey, I mean, I read the Bible. I know what it said, or the Old Testament books. I know what it said. I was born in Bethlehem. I'm from the line of David, and I've done all these different things, or said I've done all these different things, but now I'm getting crucified. Now, you can't break my bones, because if you break my bones, it ruins everything, right? So, I mean, they had all the information that we have, because we have the Old Testament. And if not, they had more. Because, some books wasn't put in the Bible that they had at the time, like Enoch and some of the others. Right? So they knew the information. They just didn't want to accept the information. It's just interesting that, which I think, this happens probably after the rapture, because all his attention's on Israel. It's just, it's kind of like, it's almost like it's at the end during this last part when Jesus comes back and saves them. It's almost like a time gap or something. I mean, I'm not sure. I can't say yes or no. It's just my opinion. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because, they're going to, it says the title is Restoration for God's People. And then the tribulation happens, on top of it or right after. Or did they go through all this during, like all this is happening during the tribulation, and then Jesus comes back and wipes them out? It's, like they're being punished, because that's the whole point, is they're kind of being punished. And then God said, okay, enough. And then Jesus comes down, wipes them out, and then the millennial reign happens.
So
I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of, it's hard to say.
It is.
Because I'm no prophet.
Well, look at this. So I'm still looking here at this last section where it's talking about restoration of God's people.
Right.
Now, we've talked about looking at this in Romans and a couple other books where it talks kind of about God's people. It talks about it in Revelation, the seal on the heads of the 144,000. Right. But if you go into, so it says right here, let's go back to this verse 27 here. It says, when I bring them home from the lands of their enemies, I will display my holiness among them for all the nations to see. So he's bringing them back, right?
Right.
He's bringing them home. There's a bunch of places throughout the Bible that talk about the four winds or the four winds of heaven. But one verse in particular jumps out at me when we were going through that, and right here, Matthew 24:30 through 31. It says, then will appear in heaven the sign of the Son of Man. And then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of the Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send out his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. And then we have, hold on, let me see here. Mark 13's talking about the same Mark 13:27. And then he will send out his angel and gather his elect from the four winds, from the ends of the earth to the ends of heaven. He's gathering all of his people back.
Right.
It goes on and on. Zechariah talks about it. Daniel talks about the four winds. It's all over the place.
I mean, the gathering of his people, right? So we're all kind of under Abraham's covenant, and then Jesus' covenant that he made with us.
The new covenant.
Right, the new covenant. So we are still, as Christians, God's people. We're adopted in. We're not necessarily Adam or Abraham's descendants, which I guess, no, we're not really. Unless you'd be Jewish or whatever if you were. So we're not Abraham's descendants, but we've been grafted back into the family.
Mm-hmm.
So is that possibly because it says when Christ returned, he brings all of us with him.
So this is interesting because two times ago, you weren't here last time we were together because last week we didn't do anything because of the snow.
Right.
But we were looking at the book of Enoch. And we started breaking that down. And in the beginning, it starts talking about two groups of people that God's talking about, to his people. And it talks about the elect and the righteous as two separate groups. The elect, when we look at the elect through a lot of the Bible, I truly believe that's talking about his nation, his
like
elect, Israel. That's what he's talking about.
He's elected them to be his.
When in Deuteronomy, when it talks about, but he kept Israel his own portion, his heritage, his elect. Right, that's his people.
So the righteous would be us because we're only righteous through him.
Yeah, we're only righteous because of following after Jesus.
Right.
So I think that's a separation. When it talks about the elect, I truly think it's just talking about
just Israel itself.
The Jew, because
I see that.
He elected them.
Right.
That was his people.
He declared them as his own.
Where we got grafted in later, and Paul talks about, he says, basically that we got the chance to be grafted in because they stepped away. And he said, how much greater will it be when they are regrafted in? He said, they're coming back.
Well, if you think about it, that's even the prodigal son returning.
Yeah.
One
of the many layers of that parable.
Yeah, it's the son, he says, "You know what, Dad? I've had enough of this. Just give me my inheritance. I'm gonna go do my own thing." He spends it all sleeping with pigs, and that's even in itself because pigs were unclean to them, and he's sleeping with them, And then he comes back, and then the father throws a party because his son come back. It's not, oh, okay, you're back, cool. Go work with the slaves. Like he's like, well, even my dad's slaves get treated better than I'm living now. Mm-hmm. I'll just go back as a slave. No, he took them in. It's almost as if when they do come back, they'll be in better position or title, for lack of words, than we will be, because they are the son. We would be just like the slave in a sense. Like we as a slave, his slave lives better than he's living. Mm-hmm. So we're living better than the world's living. Per se, we get eternal life. We don't have to suffer and burden damnation of fire forever.
Yeah, exactly.
But yet we're not the elected ones either.
Mm-mm.
We wasn't chosen from the beginning. So when they finally turn, they're the we're bringing them drinks at the party.
Well, all right, guys.
Sorry for all my babbling.
No, it's been a good one. It's been a deep dive and looking into some history as well as looking into some the present day and even future possibilities. And I mean,
I
no one knows.
No, I just feel like I went everywhere.
But I love it. It was
Yeah.
good. Some deep dives, and you showed me some things I've never seen before.
I just found some of the stuff interesting, like, this Jerusalem, 70 years.
Yeah.
Like, what's the odds of that?
It seems planned to me.
Well, I'm sure Trump planned it, but I'm just saying or maybe he didn't. What's the odds? Maybe he's just like, well, on this day, they declared Israel country, so I'm going to declare Jerusalem on that day, not realizing it's 70 years later.
Well, yeah, not everybody understands the symbolism with that.
Yeah, it's just wild, and like you're like, hey Ben, you need to do something that you're interested in.
Yeah, guess what?
I
It
did.
wasn't a one and done, Ben.
Oh man,
I know.
You mean? Oh, that's what I showed you. I can do it. So now I'm on the hook,
You're on the
right?
hook.
Man,
Well, thank you guys for listening, and as always,
keep digging. Hey guys, thanks for listening to the Dig Bible Podcast. Don't be like a county worker. Get in that hole and dig some. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and check out our YouTube channel. See ya.